What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and their 2021 season preview, including record predictions. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, it's Mike here. Over 93% of you who view our show each and every day are not subscribed to the channel. If you could hit that red subscribe button, it would help us out tremendously, and it is completely free for you guys. If you want to stay up to date with our daily content, then click that bell icon and you will be notified every time we go live. Nick and I both really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and we can't wait to keep making more daily content for you. All right, Nick, we are on the final team of the 2021 season previews and record predictions, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the 32nd team that we will be covering, and fittingly enough, we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, who, you know, our friend John is very high on, and I think that at this point, the Bengals have a lot to offer and a lot to talk about. So let's talk about their additions, starting off with their key wide receiver they drafted, Ja'Marr Chase, getting Chidobe Awuzie at the cornerback position, Mike Hilton over from the Steelers, Reiff on the offensive line, Larry Ogunjobi and Trey Henderickson on the defensive line, and Joseph Ossai. Nick, out of these additions, which ones do you believe are the biggest impact for the Bengals moving forward?
I really like the additions of the defensive line, honestly. Trey Henderickson and Joseph Ossai on the outside with Larry Ogunjobi in the middle. That's a great overhaul at the defensive line position. These guys are really going to be the anchor of the defense. They're going to be what get pressure on the defense, help out these cornerbacks, the secondary as a whole. This is going to be really what the defense is built on. To me, Joseph Ossai was a massive steal, a guy who could have gone first round in the draft, but fell to the third round. And then you have Trey Henderickson, who replaces Carl Lawson, a very nice signing from the New Orleans Saints, and Larry Ogunjobi, a very good hybrid defensive tackle who can help out in the run game, who can also help get to the quarterback as well. I think these guys are going to work really well together. I think that this is going to be a huge improvement over what the defensive line has looked like in the last few years.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and I'm also going to take Ja'Marr Chase here. When you pair Ja'Marr Chase with his favorite college quarterback, not his only, but his favorite college quarterback from LSU, and you have Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase back together, I mean, you are just asking for an absolutely explosive wide receiver quarterback duo. You're talking about some of the biggest plays and some of the most explosive offensive firepower that you're going to see in the league for many, many years to come. I love Ja'Marr Chase. I love what he brings. I don't know if I would have gone Ja'Marr Chase in the draft, but I think adding him to this offense with the wide receivers that you already have in Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, I believe that you are going to have one hell of a trio of wide receivers for Joe Burrow to work with. So I love it. Let's take a look at some of their losses, though, starting off with Carl Lawson on the edge. Then you had running back Giovanni Bernard, wide receiver A.J. Green, defensive tackle Geno Atkins, and cornerback William Jackson. Nick, out of these losses, which do you see as the biggest impact for the Bengals moving forward?
Definitely William Jackson. This is a guy who was on the rise for a couple of years now, and he takes his talents and goes to the Washington football team. Now you replace him with Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton. Those guys really don't live up to what William Jackson was at, the level at which he was playing at currently. But William Jackson is a guy who's continuing to get better each and every year. He's one of the top 10 best corners in the NFL. He just doesn't get the praise. One of the best man-to-man corners you can find. This is a huge piece that is being lost by the Cincinnati Bengals, a key piece they should have tried to get back because he is going to go a long way in the NFL. He is going to help out every team that he plays for. Without him on this team, this Bengals defense as a whole is going to be struggling to figure out how to stop wide receivers on the opposing offenses.
Yeah, I mean, William Jackson, a huge loss, but I'm going to stick on the defensive side of the ball, specifically the front seven. When you lose Carl Lawson and Geno Atkins, you are losing massive pieces. Carl Lawson goes to the New York Jets, and Geno Atkins stays as a free agent, but is not going back to the Cincinnati Bengals. He's made that clear. They've made that clear. It's just not going to work out. So when you bring in players like Larry Ogunjobi, Joseph Ossai, Trey Hendrickson, that's great, but you should be trying to add those players to the core that you already have, the Carl Lawsons of the world, the Geno Atkins of the world. If you had Carl Lawson and Geno Atkins added on with those three guys, we're talking about a whole level of front seven that they should be going after, that they should be looking to attain. And at this point, I believe that they are just churning out talent, whether it's bringing in free agents or drafting players. It's they hold on to them for as long as their contract is, and then as soon as that's up, they're out and they have to replenish it. There's no staying power with the Cincinnati Bengals. So I see Geno Atkins and Carl Lawson really being big losses for them, because I would have liked to have seen them as key pillars for this defensive front seven moving forward, with the additions of Ogunjobi, Hendrickson, and Joseph Ossai. All right, taking a look at those additions and losses, let's now move over to the schedule where we take a look at their 2021 season predictions. All right, taking a look at the schedule for the Cincinnati Bengals, we start off week one where they're at home facing off against the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings come in with a very powerful offense headed by Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook. This is one of the most explosive offenses that you can find. With that lackluster Bengals defense, I think that things are going to get a little dicey for them early on in this game. I think the Vikings defense is vastly improved. Joe Burrow has plenty of weapons to work with, and Joe Mixon, we haven't talked about him in a while, but I believe Joe Mixon is going to be one of those guys that's going to play a key role for this team moving forward. I believe at this point, though, the Vikings have playoff and Super Bowl aspirations, while the Bengals are just looking to improve upon last year. So I believe that the Vikings come out on top in week one.
Never fret, Bengals fans, as in week 2, y'all get to go to Chicago, face Andy Dalton, the QB1 for the Chicago Bears, in a very good matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals. Andy Dalton, we know he's not going to be under center for very too long, but you get him in week 2, where he's still holding Justin Fields off for now, as the Bengals are really going to put Jamar Chase on a pedestal. They're really going to help make him shine in this matchup, as the Bears secondary is not what it once used to be. The Bengals are really going to have a big passing attack. Joey B is going to shine in this one, have a massive passing day. The Bengals get a big win in week 2.
And then in week 3, the Bengals continue their road games as they face off against their division rival, Pittsburgh Steelers. Taking a look at the Steelers team, they have the trio of wide receivers back together: Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. They have Big Ben still under center. With the addition of Najee Harris, they get that much more talented on the offensive side of the ball. And then on defense, they still have TJ Watt. They still have Joe Hayden. They still have Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, they are very talented all the way around. I believe that the Steelers are a much stronger team than the Bengals are right now. Look for the Steelers to win in week 3.
In week 4, the Jacksonville Jaguars make their way to Cincinnati, where these two former number 1 overall draft picks get to face off for the first time in a massive game. These two really get to show just who is the better pick. And to me, it really comes down to what the defenses can do. The Jaguars' offense is great. The Bengals' offense is great. But what can these defenses do to stop these two offenses? The Bengals have done a lot more to get this team, to get the defense under control. The Jacksonville Jaguars had a lot of overhaul, but with the new coaching situation, there's a lot of change going on for them. Still early in the season, I think they're going to be working through a lot of kinks. The Bengals are in a much better situation, and they're going to take advantage of that. In week 4, the Bengals get a big win over the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And then in week 5, the Green Bay Packers come to visit the Cincinnati Bengals. This is not your father's Green Bay Packers. This isn't Aaron Rodgers. This isn't Brett Favre. This is Jordan Love. And the Packers are in a weird state right now. I mean, what's happening with Aaron Rodgers, we don't know. As of right now, everybody's assuming that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be that quarterback. He doesn't want to go back because of the general manager. And there's a lot to dissect there. We've done that on our channel. So if you want to dive into that a little bit more, go check out that video. But at this point, the Packers are just that they're in a tough spot, and I believe that the Bengals, they've been riding high. They're sitting at 2-2 right now, and they're having a great season. But the Packers still have some incredible weapons outside of Jordan Love. You have Devontae Adams. You still have Aaron Jones. You got some key pieces on the defensive side of the ball where you're going to be able to get some pressure on opposing quarterbacks. You're going to be able to cover number one wide receivers moving forward. So I look for the Packers to actually come out on top in a very close matchup in week 5.
Moving into week 6, the Cincinnati Bengals head to Detroit where they get to face Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. This is going to be a very good matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals, as the Detroit Lions will be scrapping to even get a win this season. The Bengals really have too much offensive power for this defense, and the Bengals defense definitely has enough to stop the lackluster weapons that the Lions have to offer. The Bengals get another big win in week 6.
Hey, sitting at 3-3, if you told a Bengals fan this is where they would be after last season, they'd be all too happy to take that and then some. But then in week 7, the Bengals go on the road to face their division rival, Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens, again, one of those teams that have Super Bowl and playoff aspirations, where the Bengals are really just trying to get this team on the field all at once and trying to gauge where they are in the landscape of the NFL. I think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to easily beat the Bengals in week 7.
Moving into week 8, the Cincinnati Bengals make their way to MetLife Stadium facing off against the New York Jets in what's going to be a very winnable matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals. They've beaten the Bears, they've beaten the Jaguars, they've beaten the Lions. They should be able to beat the Jets, right? Not so much. In this matchup, the Jets show just how much they've improved themselves. I believe that the offensive line for the Jets is going to hold strong for Zach Wilson. You've got Corey Davis and some other big weapons for him to throw to. And then on the defensive side of the ball, outside of the secondary, it's a fairly strong team. The defensive line is looking really good, and I think that they're going to be able to stop Joe Mixon. It's all going to be about how they can handle this passing attack, but I think at the end of the day, the Jets will be able to squeak out a big win over the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, and don't forget, this is Carl Lawson's New York Jets defense that will be going up against his former teammate Joe Burrow, so look out for that revenge game for him. But in week 9, the Cleveland Browns come to Cincinnati where they face off against the Bengals for the first time this season. They're cross-state rivals, division rivals, and I believe that the Cleveland Browns, again, we've talked about they are just on a different level. They are looking for a Super Bowl run. The Bengals are looking to figure out where they stand in the grand scheme of the NFL. I believe that the Browns have the requisite pieces to stomp all over the Bengals twice on Sunday. So at this point, week 9, the Browns are going to win very easily.
In week 10, the Cincinnati Bengals have their bye week. Moving into week 11, they are on the road facing the Las Vegas Raiders in a very good matchup, except when you look at the Raiders, they're a team that have made a ton of improvements on both sides of the ball. I think most notably on the defensive side of the ball, when you look at this edge rush, it is very, very good. It stands up there with the best in the league, and it's going to be a lot for this Bengals offensive line to handle. As we mentioned earlier in the video, the Bengals offensive line, it has not improved much at all outside of Riley Reiff, and it's just not going to be enough to stop these guys from pouncing all over Joe Burrow. This is a game where I'm going to worry for Joe Burrow's life. I'm going to worry for his health. I believe that Joe Burrow is going to be in a lot of trouble. He'll be running for his life a ton throughout this game, and the Raiders offense is going to definitely be able to put up some points against this Bengals secondary. The Raiders are going to get a big win against the Bengals in week 11.
That in week 12, the Steelers are on the road where they face off against the Cincinnati Bengals. And this isn't the same Cincinnati Bengals that they faced off against in week 3. I believe that the Bengals, they've gotten a lot of things under control. I believe that Joe Burrow has everything working for him. He feels more comfortable on his knee. I believe that the offensive line has kind of settled in a little bit, and this defense has kind of found a rhythm. They've lost some interesting games that they could have won. You talk about the Raiders, you talk about the Jets. I think those were definitely winnable games. And then even the Packers, I think, could have been a winnable game. I think they beat the Steelers here. I think that the Steelers are in a decline where the Bengals are in incline. I think they're just kind of passing by each other. In divisional games, they always play different. The Bengals know how to play the Steelers. They came close to beating them last year. Look for the Bengals to actually get the job done in week 12.
Headed into week 13, the Los Angeles Chargers make their way to Cincinnati, where these two quarterbacks who were drafted just a year ago get to face off. Joe Burrow was in line for that Offensive Rookie of the Year award, but it was Justin Herbert who took the cake after Joe Burrow went down with an injury. Joe Burrow wants to prove that he is the better quarterback. He will be showing out for this game, and it will be two offensive monsters going up against each other. It comes down to defense and who can get a stop first. To me, it's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers, as they have the edge rush, they have the secondary. The Bengals only have one of them, and the Chargers get a big win over the Bengals in week 13.
In week 14, the Cincinnati Bengals continue their home stretch where they face off against the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers come in here with what I expect to be Trey Lance under center. I believe that Trey Lance is going to offer this team a lot more than Jimmy Garoppolo can. I believe he's going to be a difference maker because of his ability to move inside and around the pocket, as well as outside the pocket, and stretch the field with his legs. I believe that the 49ers are sort of in a rebuild. You know, they're transitioning quarterbacks. They got to fix up this defense a little bit. The loss of Robert Salah has really hurt them this season, but I believe that the 49ers will be able to easily beat the Bengals. I think that they are much more improved than the Bengals, and I look for the 49ers to get a good victory in week 14.
In week 15, the Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Denver, to Mile High, in a very good matchup for them. If this is Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, that's yet to be seen. But when you look at the Broncos, they've got a very strong offense as well, very comparable to the Cincinnati Bengals. But when you look at the defenses, this is where the Broncos set themselves apart. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb up front, but then you have Kyle Fuller, Patrick Surtain, Ronald Darby, and Bryce Callahan. That's way too much for the Cincinnati Bengals to handle. Each one of these top tier wide receivers for the Bengals gets their own CB1. That's going to be a lot for them to handle. Joe Burrow's going to have a tough time finding an open weapon. I think the Broncos are going to be able to edge out the Bengals because of just how dominant their defense is.
Then in week 16, the Baltimore Ravens come to face off against the Cincinnati Bengals. And in this divisional matchup, I believe that the Baltimore Ravens, like in week 7, will be able to have the absolute willpower and strength to not succumb to playing down to their opponent. I believe that they have bigger things in mind, and at the end of the day, while divisional games are played a little bit differently, I believe that the Baltimore Ravens are just that much stronger than the Bengals. I don't think that they're going to have to worry all that much, and I believe that the Ravens have an easy game in week 16.
And then in week 17, the Kansas City Chiefs make their way to Cincinnati. It doesn't get any easier for the Cincinnati Bengals as they go from one tough opponent to an even tougher opponent. Patrick Mahomes is going to take advantage of this defense. The offensive line for the Chiefs has improved so much so that this Bengals defensive line really won't be able to do much against him. There's nobody in the secondary that can stop Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill, and this is going to be a very easy cakewalk for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs get a nice win in week 17.
Talking about it doesn't get easier, well, look at the season that the Cleveland Browns have had. You go from the Baltimore Ravens to the Kansas City Chiefs, and now the Cleveland Browns. This is one hell of a way to end your season. I believe that the cross-state Cleveland Browns are just going to be so dominant. They are fighting for that number 1 seed in the AFC, and at this point, I believe that the Cleveland Browns are just that much stronger. They're going to close their season out in style, and the Cleveland Browns will come out on top in week 18.
With a record of 4-13 on the season, things aren't looking too bright. Joe Burrow may have made it through the season unscathed, but you've got to look at where the deficiencies are in this team. Mainly offensive line, that's a massive one. Pass rushes are going to take advantage of this team throughout the season, as we see in each of these matchups. And then it's the secondary. I believe that the secondary for the Bengals is extremely lackluster. Chidobe Awuzie was barely able to cut it on the Dallas Cowboys, and they didn't want to pay him a lot of money. But the Cincinnati Bengals must see something in him that no one else can. Maybe they can pull something out of him that no one else sees. I don't think so, but Mike Hilton is another one. He didn't really work out in Pittsburgh as much as they wanted him to. He's an average cornerback at the end of the day. I don't think that the secondary for the Bengals is going to be anything to write home about. In fact, I think it's going to be part of why this team suffers so many losses this season. They have their holes to fix. It's just about fixing them, getting the right pieces in there, making sure you have the right coaching staff as well, and bringing everybody together, making sure you're one unit working towards the same goal. The Bengals have some of the right pillars in place with the quarterback and the defensive line and the wide receivers. That's great. Use that to build off of. This is not your year. Next year's not going to be a year, but you got to look towards the future and try to figure out how you can get there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Cincinnati Bengals, they were hoping for a much more improved season. And I talked about it halfway through. They could have beaten the Jets, they could have beaten the Packers, and they possibly could have even beaten the Las Vegas Raiders. I think those are teams, even the Chargers and maybe the 49ers. I mean, these are winnable games for the Bengals if they fix up the offensive line, if they fix up the secondary. I mean, they are not that far off from being able to really truly compete in the NFL. And I think, while they're still a lower team, they're going to have a higher draft pick. Hopefully, they'll be able to get somebody that can really help them out here. I truly believe that their deficiencies come on the offensive line. You got to protect the franchise. And that's got to be priority number one. Get some cornerback help in there. Richard Sherman's still a free agent. Maybe you bring him in. Maybe you get some of these other guys that are still sitting in free agency. They still have plenty of money available to them in cap space. And I believe that the Bengals have not done a good job of attracting key free agents to the Bengals franchise so far. Look for them to try to turn that around and see if they can get some of these big names to come to Cincinnati and really help this team out. But as of right now, the Bengals sit at 4-13 and doesn't really look like it's going to be changing anytime soon. But all right, well, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.